Well, it's going to be, I wanted the focus to be on you and your business and everything you're doing, right?
Sure.
Because essentially, like, that's why we're here is because, like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And, like, you're doing, like, the craziest shit ever.
Yeah. It is crazy, you know. I talk to my guys like every single day, and we're talking through like doing some random thing like remanufacturing this machine, and that fleeting thought I have like every day is like there's no one doing this. Like it's a pretty wild thing to be doing, you know what I mean? So I'm glad you were able to come in and see it, you know, for yourself.
Dude, it's got to be cool. I thought about this morning, was like, it has to be fucking awesome to wake up in the morning and be like, and like, you're just chomping at the bit, which is like, I'm making equipment and I'm refurbishing equipment and all this shit like 5 years ago wasn't possible. And now like, look at what you've built so far. And I'm like, his day has to be like bananas.
Yeah, you know, from like inception of idea and like day one to today, um, I kind of tell people like it looks different on the outside, but like internally it's all the same. Like it's all the same battle that you're fighting every single day, which is like, can I make the right chain of decisions that will lead to the right outcome that I'm pursuing? You know, and day one, the struggles are, you know, day one, year one, or the struggles are like, am I going to generate enough money to make payroll? Am I, you know, is there a product market fit? Like, what's my next move? How am I going to get a warehouse? All these like kind of, you know, bootstrap, really tough ideas. And then fast forward 5 years later, I'm still driven with the same hunger and I'm still driven with the same passion and there's still that same fire, if not more of that now, but the problems have just scaled. You know, you're solving bigger problems and there are more people working on the problem and there are more people that are bought in and excited about what you're doing. So it is crazy as fuck, but like my day is not necessarily any more crazy than like your day is right now, right? Like you're getting a business off the ground and you're trying to find out where you fit in the market and you're trying to close deals and you're doing the same thing that, you know, that any other entrepreneur does. It's just, you know, I'm just existing in a space that's very niche, very unique and different, you know?
So let's go to like the inception, right? Like, when did this become like a side hustle to, oh, this is the hustle?
Yeah. So it's a really wild story, and I'm gonna get, you know, kind of probably a little weird, but yeah, I'll tell you about kind of my my history in the workforce. I think that kind of sets it up. You know, I got into fitness when I was in high school, right? I was a fat kid. Um, you know, riddled with anxiety, and you know, just people were not my thing. Girls didn't like me. I didn't know what to do with my hands, right? And so I found fitness, and fitness was like this really neat oasis away from people into the like this side of myself that I could kind of start to discover and like figure out who I was. And so fitness was something from early on that I always felt really called towards, and you know, it saved my life in many different ways, I would say. And so I always in the workforce gravitated towards those positions. It was working in gyms. It was working, you know, in health and wellness, and supplements was the big one. Supplements for many years. I worked with GNC, but always found that I was I had these huge ambitions. Like as a kid, I you know, they're like your grandma or your mom will tell you like you can be anything you want when you grow up or whatever. They kind of instill that in you, and everyone has these like half-assed like they they say these things because they want you to pursue something good or great or whatever it is. But like myself, I almost lived, and I still do to this day, in this like delusional world where it's not like I can, it's that I am going to. It's that I am on the way there. It is that, you know, that every moment and every decision is just a part of the journey that is an imminent and, you know, undeniable success. And so I've always had that like drive in my mind. And so entering the workforce, I was trying to figure out what path that was supposed to be in health and wellness. And every time that I kept trying to climb the corporate ladder, I kept just getting shot down because I wasn't, you know, I didn't have this or I didn't have that. Like I'm kind of good at a few different things, but for the most part, I'm not really that great at anything, right? And so I constantly kept getting kind of shut down. And I eventually, in my mid 20s, I got fed up with it, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't work for anyone else ever again. I'm through. I'm over it. And at the time, my wife, the girlfriend at the time, Alejandra, we had just gotten a dog, Tala. She's a fucking awesome dog. She's a wolf dog, super cool animal. And she hated living in the apartment that we were living in Austin. So we were like, hey, let's move somewhere. Had never even heard of Gerald. We found it on Zillow. We were like, oh, it's $1,700 for a house. That's like almost what we're paying right now for an apartment. Let's roll. And so here we come out to Gerald, Texas, December 18, March 20. Now I was kind of doing some stuff on the side. I was selling car audio and installing car audio, and I'm a jack of all trades. I've always been able to make rent, like figuring stuff out. And then COVID hit, and COVID was this, I remember COVID as this like apocalyptic thing in the beginning. It was like terrifying. Like I thought that the world was coming to an end. I was legitimately bought into the Kool-Aid that was being fed on my YouTube feed. I remember being glued to my YouTube feed, dude. Just like, what the fuck is going on, And it was, I saw that though, I was like, this is the wildest thing that I've ever seen. Everything is closed. We have no idea what's going on. But yeah, the universe, the God or whatever you want to call it, kind of came in and was like, here's this thing, the gyms were closed. We started buying and selling gym equipment, and it was kind of a combination of everything that Alex was good at and I was good at. She would do the restoration, I would find the deals, and I would sell the equipment, and we just kind of put everything together. And I remember, and Alex will tell you this story too, to this day, I remember the moment where it all clicked, and I was like, this is it. I've never felt this way, this excited about doing something, and it's working. So
Your excitement was like tangible at
yeah,
that time. I remember watching you from afar, whether going to certain gyms that had black tarp on their windows or what have you, or watching you on social media, and it was just like almost infectious, which is like the passion and the work that you were putting in. It was like every day you were like putting up something, selling something, putting up something, selling something, putting up something, selling something. And the prices at that point were just out fucking rageous, and you were still like steady and just like, yeah, sold another piece. Yeah, sold another piece. Oh, we got this cool piece. Yeah, we're doing this. We're doing that. Oh, you need dumbbells? We got dumbbells. Da, da, da. And it was absolutely insane to watch the passion from afar, because it was just like this relentlessness.
yeah, and looking back on it, that was one of the reasons why we had that small level of success that allowed us to keep going, was because people like yourself were bought in and watching that really neat story unfold. Like, here's this renegade group of people. It's this guy and like two or three other crazy motherfuckers that are like, screaming fuck the world while the world is freaking out, shut down, and they're saying we're gonna go do this thing, and people need something, and we're going to make that happen regardless of what it takes.
Yeah, and working out that period was kind of like Fight Club. Like, it was kind of almost frowned upon, which was if certain gyms were closed down, but they would call you and you could stop in so that they could keep memberships, so they could keep the lights on. And, you'd show up or you do a workout, or if you were buying equipment and you did a video of you working out, people like, you got hate, like, oh, must be nice. And, oh, I'm here over here. But then you saw like guys like leg pressing their couch and like doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's like, you saw a huge opportunity and you seized it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with seeing a need and fulfilling that need, and then building off of that need to what it is now, which is absolutely astronomical. But yeah, during COVID was like that time where you had people that were like, no, like, fuck the system. Like, I understand that you want the gyms to be closed, but you're not going to stop me from being my absolute best.
Yeah, yeah, and you know that whole time frame, I knew that there was an expiration date on it, But that pocket of opportunity that I had every single day, I was like watching the clock, like when are they going to open the gyms back up? Because that means that this run has come to an end. That the mission that I had, which was to take, I had no money when I started this business, okay? I had no credit. I had nothing. It was, I had the $1,000 in my pocket. I needed to turn that into 2,000, and then I needed to turn that into 4, and then 10, and whatever, right? Like I had to just keep that cash flow going, and that artificial inflation that COVID had put out into the market was what I leveraged to start the business. So I knew, hey, I've got like potentially like 90 more days of this shit, and then the market's gonna level back out, and that means that I gotta put in 20-hour fucking days every single day, because as soon as the walls, as soon as the doors open back up, we don't really know what's gonna happen. But yeah, COVID I think taught the world and myself a lot about like who to trust, and how to live your life, and it was, yeah, I definitely, I loved that time. It was awesome.
Dude, it was probably one of my favorite time periods in my life. And it was the first time ever in my life that I was forced to just sit with myself, right? You're forced because there was no distraction. Nothing was open. There's no job to go to. It was just, you are there. And like, yeah, you got to work out for an hour. And then what are you going to do the other 23 hours? Either build a business or find out who you are, or wrestle with whatever is going on in your subconscious, right? And I'm sure you had to wrestle with a lot of things, because it comes down to that point where like, at how many different points did you get to where it was like, maybe this is dumb. Maybe this is just like a pipe dream. Maybe I'm only making this money now because it's COVID.
Oh, dude.
And, what are we going to do after?
Yeah.
And take me through like your thought process of like, when COVID was coming to a close, what was your strategy? What were you thinking? What was going through your head?
Yeah, I get chills thinking about like the this, what is it, solidarity, I guess, the loneliness of what that path meant for me, which was, you do doubt yourself. Everyone around you doubts you. Everyone that cares about you is telling you not to do it, because they come from an honest place of like authentic care. And they're like, hey, this does not seem like a good idea. And, and when everyone around you is telling you to run, this way, you want to chase it even harder. At least that was my experience.
Yeah.
And the doubters just fueled that fire with just this like relentlessness.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you.
Yeah. Oh, dude, fuck them, right? Like, I'm gonna
Yes.
climb to the top of the mountain and plant the flag. And yeah, I mean, a lot of it became about that, and I don't like that. I don't like that. That's something that I look back on and I'm like, probably could have done it a little bit differently. But like, it really was like, oh, my wife's family thinks that this is dumb, and then I'm not gonna make it. Watch this shit. Watch this shit.
But I think also you need a certain amount of that for fuel, because you wouldn't have worked as hard. You wouldn't have the same ferocity if you didn't have that, if you didn't have that spite, right? And like, I can definitely attest to it, where every accomplishment I've ever had in my entire life has been out of fucking spite. Even moving to Texas was out of spite, because my dad told me, I bet you can't move somewhere where you don't have friends or connections. They're like, well, watch me.
Here we go.
And so I think, to say like, oh, maybe there was a better way to go about it, I don't think there was. Because I think, if in order for you to put in those 20-hour days, in order for you to have the same ferocity, in order for you to like just absolutely grind yourself into a pulp to make this happen, needed that spite. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. In an entrepreneur in the infancy of like that, spreading your wings and jumping out of the nest, there's a just tidal wave of emotions and learning that happens at such a rapid pace. I tell entrepreneurs when I sit down with them, year one and year two is like, and Knives, my creative director, he has this saying, it's like drinking from the fire hose. It's this compressed like, time frame, this 1 or 2 years where you learn what most people do in the course of 10, right? And so, not only are you fueled by this like deep desire to accomplish this vision that you have in your mind, but you've also got everyone around you that is throwing in this doubt that this spite is fueling, and it's a really laser focused time where there's nothing else that you can accomplish if you're an entrepreneur and you have this vision. It's almost impossible to do anything else. Like that's the only thing that you care about or that you can see or that you can think of, and yeah, that's that North Star.
It's an obsession with success, right? And like anybody who's good at anything needs a level of obsession. And I always heard obsession as like a negative connotation, right? Like someone's one dimensional. But if you're doing a business, right? If you're going to be the best at something, if you're going to develop something that everyone tells you is not going to be sustainable, that no one else is doing, then you have to be obsessed with it because otherwise it'll fail.
Yeah, I kind of tell people ask me for advice, and I'm like, I'm the worst person to probably take advice from possible. But in my opinion, it's if you're not the best at something, then just go find something else to do that you are the best at. And that's been my kind of motto, and that's why I've kind of shifted around until I found this thing that, in my opinion, life is this incredibly beautiful gift that we're all gifted. And you have an obligation to make it mean something. You have to create, you have to build beautiful things, or and it doesn't have to be like these profound, massive companies or whatever. Like, that's, some people stay in that lane, that's my lane, but like you have to make it worthwhile. You have to change people around you for the better, and you have to help as many people as you can. That's what it's about for me. It's like, what's the impact that I can make on planet Earth that helps the most amount of people in a way that I know from my own experience helps a lot of people.
Right. And that comes full circle with your build series as well, where like it's made, and like this is like my number one complaint with modern equipment, right? Is like a lot of it's made by engineers and not people who actually lift weights. And all of your stuff is like tried and tested by people who lift weights, like yourself, right? Like it's all like made for people who are going to quote unquote abuse it in the right way, right? And use this equipment and and train themselves into the dirt with it and build their home gyms or build real gyms with it. And they're going to be used again and again and again. And it's not going to be one of those pieces that just sits in the corner that nobody uses because it's made by an engineer and it feels like shit, right? And now that you're manufacturing your own pieces with build, what's that like? Now that you're going kind of upscale and like essentially building out gyms, right?
Yeah, build to me has always been this, kind of guiding light. Selling used equipment was phenomenal. I loved still to this day do love everything about used equipment. Like providing discount is, and opening up the ability for people to buy equipment that maybe couldn't afford to, or just making it more realistic for people to buy gym equipment, whether that's owners or commercial gym owners or home gym owners, is something I'll always be passionate about. But build kind of, the concept was like, well, we have to be able to offer comprehensive solutions. We have to be able to build turnkey gyms, whether that's home gyms or commercial gyms. And something I've always been kind of a nerd about is like the art of the equipment. Any meathead would probably say something kind of similar, but when I started getting into gym equipment, it was something that I hadn't really looked underneath the hood of a treadmill before, and I don't think a lot of people really have. And you look at it and you look at an exploded parts diagram and you're like, dude, a lot of people spent a lot of time, thinking through and iterating and falling flat on their face until they carved this thing out. And it was just something that I took a liking to and was like, man, I want to do that like that. I want to create equipment and I want to improve and I want to be I want to offer something to someone and be able to genuinely say, this is something that I believe in because it's something that I have tested and everyone around me, and we think that this is a quality piece of equipment. And when you come buy this same SKU from me in 5 years, it's going to be even better. That's that like commitment to just bringing exciting ideas. And yeah, it was received like so tremendously well, bro. It's like unreal to even think like how it could have gone any smoother. Like I don't know. God is good, and it's just been such a fun ride, man. And I'm like, we're just barely scratching the surface of what we're gonna be doing here, and so that's to me, one of the most exciting things. I can't stop thinking about like, what is this thing gonna do? Where's it gonna go?
It's so outrageously exciting to watch it too, because it's like rapidly growing, and the pieces are all absolutely fantastic. Like there hasn't been a piece I haven't.
There are some that are bad.
Yeah, I'm sure there
We've
are.
worked those out,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah,
But everything
yeah,
I've touched has been like,
yeah,
wow, like this feels really good.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
especially like when we tried your pendulum squat or when we tried your vertical leg press and we've tried all these things and they all feel like they were designed by people who actually use them. And coming back full circle, like what are it's really awesome to see you successful and go from ground roots and like scraping by having nothing, going from refurbished equipment to building your own equipment and still selling refurbished equipment, right? And outputting these massive orders now at this period of time and having two warehouses and the whole bit. But what have been the absolute most difficult points in your business ascension in the last 5 years? And how have you circumnavigated those time periods?
Um, the everything is like the substrate of business is easy. If you look at it, as a fly on the wall, and you look kind of in retrospect of all the evolution of the little things, product, operations, sales, finance, whatever, like all those elements of business they're just one of those things that you, just like training, you get exposure and you get stimulus and then you get recovery, and then you come back the next day and you're 1% better at doing that thing. The one thing that is, I think, the most crucial and the most challenging thing for me has always been leadership. It's always been the people piece. You have to get other people excited about what you're doing, and they have to have enough buy-in that you're the right person for them to follow in that chapter of their life, and nurturing and, culminating and growing another human being. You have this huge obligation as an owner, operator, CEO, or whatever you want to call it within the organization of people that are doing the thing that you're doing. You have an obligation to do right by them. And that means not just right by your best person, but it means right by your worst person. You have to look at everyone around you and remember, okay, I want to get there, and it's going to take all of these other people following me to get there. And then there's going to be a lot more people as well once we get halfway, and then once we get a little bit further and a little bit further. So hyper focusing on people has been a challenge. Learning what makes, in the workforce when I was leading in retail, I had hundreds of employees at GNC, that I had dabbling my hands in leadership in some capacity, right? Like store managers, associates, whatever. And that kind of type of person, of employee, is significantly different than a technician, is significantly different than an office person, is significantly different. So I was being exposed to all these new types of people, and yeah, admittedly, that is the one thing that has challenged me the most since day one, is like, how do I get this person excited about what we're doing? Because that's what you need to make that breakthrough. That's where you get stuck, and I cannot do this myself. I have to have 3 or 4 or 5 other people helping me do this thing in order to get there. But right now, they're kind of blind to how we're going to get there. So how do I kind of push through and make that, make sense for them?
Yeah, and I'm sure you have to create a vision for people, right? And the vision just can't be just to benefit you. It has to benefit the entirety of the team. And it's sitting down with people and and almost like speaking to each person to what they resonate with,
Mm-hmm.
really, and how do they align with your vision, and how can you align with their vision? Because everybody comes into a job either to just get a paycheck, or to do whatever, or to have long-term growth, and they're thinking about, well, I'm working here and I'm busting my ass, and besides a paycheck, how is this benefiting me and my life?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can create that vision for somebody, and if you can create that loyalty, that buy-in, then essentially you have a lifetime employee
Mm-hmm.
or a lifetime partner, right? And essentially, what is that vision that you create for the people that work for you, and how is it that they are able to kind of see that for themselves?
That's a great question. I think fundamentally people all want the same thing, and it looks a little bit different person to person, but everyone kind of just wants to get better. They want, tomorrow to be better than today, and they want the opportunity for themselves to be better for their kids. And yeah, I think that, you know, I always, you have to kind of remember that your dream is not, it's never going to be their dream. Their dream is going to be something different, right? But the manifestation of how you can get them to buy into what the outcome of that dream is sort of how you have to like translate that. You have to break that down, and they have to kind of tie on to that in whatever way that they're going to do that. But ultimately, when you boil it down, it has to be something that they know that if they chase that thing with you, they're going to get to a place that's better. They're going to go the distance. And there's different varying degrees of that, right? Like some people will kind of click, and it does become a part of their dream. Their dream is, I want to be the CEO of this company in 10 years, or, I want to, climb the ladder and accomplish these things within the industry with this guy or whatever. But for the most part, it has to be like the work that we're doing matters. And we're all getting better, and regardless of the growing pains we're going through, we're all doing something that's good for the world.
And I think that's the number one thing, right? When you join a new company, because I think 5 years is definitely a new company,
Mm-hmm.
you can establish yourself as, you know, as somebody who's going to grind with the owner,
Mm.
as somebody who's going to grow with the owner. And those are going to be the most valuable players. So you can really, as an employee, position yourself for growth if you're able to go through those growing pains and put a smile on and have a positive perspective, right? And even though you might not be the best at something, that relentlessness and that grind mentality and sharing the vision with somebody is what essentially will help you climb through the ladder as this thing grows, as this thing, multiplies, and there's multiple warehouses, and there's multiple businesses, and there's multiple gyms, right? And the real estate just, explodes. So will your career. And, in creating that vision for somebody else is probably the most difficult part of being a leader, right?
Yeah, I probably one of the best decisions that I ever made in the workforce as an employee was working at a place way too fucking hard for way too little for way too long. But I was gifted the opportunity to be exposed to all of these things just I just added so much value to my skill set. I added so many tools into my toolkit. And working at a small company, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 80 employees, you're given the opportunity to be exposed to certain things that you just can't at enterprise level or medium-sized businesses. I'm constantly sitting with my office team, and we're doing stuff like we're bouncing from, you know, concepting product to like writing pricing structures to like data and IT to like, fulfillment operations and like software development and all these different crazy things, right? Like that doesn't fucking happen if you're working at Amazon, you know what I mean? That doesn't happen if you're working at Walmart or Target or, these larger companies. So it is something that yeah, you figure out what makes people tick the most. There's gonna be that one thing that each employee really fucking wants to do, and so it's how can I work and make get that person to be able to do that thing, but more importantly, how can I get them to do that long term, which means how can I make it fit into the business model for the company? How can I move the pieces of the puzzle around so that I can let Vince, do this one thing that he's the most excited about, that he only gets to do 10% of his time? How can I make him do that 80% of his time, and make it make sense for the business? Because guess what's going to happen to Vince? He's going to stay here for fucking ever. He's going to keep getting better. He's going to be more and more bought into the mission that we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and that's basically what it is that like how do you really emphasize people's strengths? This person's strong at this and this person's strong at this. And these two people, they work incredibly well together. And how do we get them on a project together?
It's a chess game.
Yeah. Yeah, essentially
really
it's a
is.
giant
You're just
chess game
playing chess.
every single day.
Yeah.
And not only are you managing the people, but you're managing the inventory, you're managing the orders, you're managing then your customers.
And you're constantly having this, like I tell myself every day, man, I would be really fucking good at this if I didn't have to do this one thing. If I didn't have to do that one fucking thing. And you know what happens? You always have to do the one thing.
Well, it's essentially what we run the hardest from is what haunts us.
Yeah.
And
you have to face that, head first in the mirror every single day.
Yeah.
Until it becomes the number two thing that you hate.
Yeah, if you don't attack that one thing, that one thing will rule you. Yeah. And that's essentially what it is.
100%.
Speaking of things that rule us, how do you balance the business and all the businesses now and your relationship? I think that's like the number one thing I see that is people's downfalls, is that they have this absolute tangible passion and then everything else goes to shit, right? And it seems like you and your partner have like such a tight bond, and it is like outrageous to see. And it is like one of those things where like I watch you guys and I'm like, wow, like that is like, and she does everything, right?
Yeah.
And how do you guys, essentially, there's no balance in business, but essentially, how do you guys create balance with your own lives?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's it's taken years to get to any resemblance of something that I would consider to be balanced, right? Like, I heard someone say, like work-life balance is that's a fraud, it's a fugazi, it's a scam, because you're really trying to fit in your life around the business. Particularly, I would say when you're someone like myself who's attempting to aggressively scale something, that's obviously going to take up way more of your time than an electrician who starts whose side hustle becomes a main gig and they're able to punch out at 5 o'clock. But yeah, I think that it's just staying intentional with your time, remembering what's important. That's something that I was reckless with time, dude. Absolutely reckless in the beginning. Like when I had no daughter, and Alejandra and we're both, we fell from the same tree in regards to that workaholic kind of, attitude. So it was like me and her just straight up grinding, bro. Like it was like that's what we wanted to be doing. So why would we do anything else?
Dude, I remember watching you, and it was like insane, insane. And I like. And everything was different about you, but you could see it in your face. I'm like, that guy doesn't fucking stop.
Yeah.
Like, he's always on.
Yeah, and so once it was year two that we found out that she was pregnant, and that was not in the roadmap for us.
No.
Right. Greatest thing that ever happened to me, but
it's a speed bump as far as like business is concerned.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. You would think that it's a speed bump, but it's crazy how I have this conversation often there, with people talking about they're in their maybe their late 20s, mid 20s, even early 20s, and like I'm trying to do this thing in order to set myself up in order to have a child, which I could have said maybe the same thing about during the time, but like the thing that having a child does is it rewires your brain to like have this, to just think logically from a time management standpoint. Like every unit of time is optimized, because you have to not only run the business, have the business, you not only have to keep the house up, whatever, right? The dynamic between the mother, father, husband, and wife. But you also have to keep this thing alive. You have to fit all of that into, one 24-hour block, and then you have to rinse, lather, and repeat every single day. So Zari came, and it was, dude, I'm not gonna sit here and say it was easy. It was fucking hard.
Yeah.
It was gnarly, bro. Like brutal, just absolutely brutal. But it's so much. Looking back on it today is so much easier than it was. In the beginning. In the beginning, it's waking up in the middle of the night, like literally, like in a frantic, like I have forgot this thing, or like this customer, and you have 9 customers calling you at like 10 o'clock at night because all your shit's on Facebook Marketplace, and like it was just a huge mess. Fast forward to now, where while there is a higher degree of responsibility, it's much more manageable now, and so is the home life.
I have a personal question. What are the systems you put in place for yourself, for your own mental sanity? Speaking of phone going off at 10 p.m., right? What are the systems you put in for yourself to maintain your own sanity?
Yeah, the non-negotiables are training and always have been, right? Like even if it was only a couple of days a week, at least I was getting something in. Now I'm much more stringent and committed, which is a more recent thing. But training has always kind of been like the fabric of feeling good, mentally and physically and spiritually. Meditation or prayer every single day is a non-negotiable for me, multiple times a day, and that's the escape from like that. Like shit's freaking out. I got to slow down and make sure I get to this thing. But man, at the end of the day, it's like this. There's no one thing that you can say, oh, from 5 to 5:30 in the morning, I do an ice plunge, ice bath, or whatever, and then I go like whatever, like sunbathe my balls. I don't know, like whatever, like
Yeah,
random.
yeah.
There's no like biohack to like being better. I think as an owner operator, but it's more of a like hyper self awareness that you're conditioning your mind. It's just this muscle that you're kind of flexing throughout the day, and you're like, oh, you're making these realizations of like, well, if I do this thing and this certain, if I do this like this, and this, then that means that it leads to a bad outcome. So I'm not going to put those 3 things in the same evening block, and it's going to reduce my stress. And, I'm going to kind of ebb and flow throughout life a little bit better. Never get perfect, but I think that's how you kind of get there.
I was actually just talking about this, which is like, a lot of times we'll get like an email or message, and we want to evoke an emotional response and not answering emotionally. And sometimes you let that message or let that thing like sit on the back burner until after you've trained or when you're in a good headspace or after you've meditated, right? To where you have more, you can kind of separate yourself emotionally and answer this thing objectively, and you're just in a better headspace versus like as soon as you get something, answering immediately, and then there's a lot of emotion behind that, and then you have a reaction that you didn't want, and then you're regretting that response later, and that can be cut off connections, or someone reads you wrong, or what have you, and in the attempt to not be read incorrectly or for your intentions not to be misconstrued, not answering things emotionally and not having an emotional response to stuff. And like you said, like being able to separate yourself for 10 minutes to meditate, or being able to separate yourself to train is a big one, because then you have that catharsis, and then you're able to reapproach these problems with a much better perspective, right?
Yeah, I think this resilience, this mental resilience and emotional resilience, is it's a requirement. Like I think that's almost, that's day one stuff is developing that. Like there is no emotion in business. It's just numbers on a page. It's beautiful in a lot of ways like that. And I think, I've, dealing in customer service and sales for such a long time, there's going to be people that, don't give you the time of day, and they make you feel bad. They make you just feel worthless and low. I had a customer call me one time. I tell this story. It was someone trying to sell a treadmill. We have a line where they can call, and then she said, "Hey, I'm trying to sell this treadmill." And I said, "Ma'am, we don't buy that treadmill." And before I could even get we don't really buy that treadmill. She said, well, fuck you then, and hung up the phone. And it hurt, dude. It hurt. Like, I still remember how that stung. And that was, kind of one of the ways that I learned none of that means anything. It's all just fake. It's not even real. Business is about making decisions. It's about, like I said, data and inputs and outputs. And so you take emotion, you completely remove it from those decisions and those harsh emails and those 1-star reviews and the upset customer. You want to be emotionally invested in what you're doing, right? But that cannot become toxic. That cannot become this thing that controls the ego, that controls the decisions. It's ones and zeros, man. That's it.
Yeah, and essentially, like, you can't make, it's impossible to make everyone happy.
Sure.
It's impossible to have the perfect solution for
Yeah.
every single individual. And you have no idea what these people are going through, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a bad day, whether it's whatever life throws at them. And they might be displacing that onto you, the business owner just trying to serve them. And because you're coming from a good place and you can essentially be a punching bag for them, sometimes you are,
Yeah. You have to be.
regardless of what it is that they are actually going through and not disclosing. And sometimes it's having that objective view and just being like, hey, it's zeros and ones. Like, this person isn't happy about A, B, C, and D, but I've fulfilled everything that I've set out to fulfill. And I don't know necessarily what's going on, but I know that I'm doing everything that I can to fulfill my end of the bargain.
It's called cleaning your side of the street. The pursuit of perfection is something that will drive someone mad, that has this desire to get to this place, and they think that, and myself thought this too, that getting there requires perfect. But it doesn't. It requires excellent. The pursuit of excellence is what you should be chasing, and that's the lowest common denominator. It's like, how can I execute on what the expectations that I have set for the customer are in this way, this way, this way, and this way. And if I have done that, I've cleaned my side of the street. I've said, you know what? I am up to par here, 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 and here, which is fucking excellent. If that is not good enough for you, then that doesn't mean anything to me. That's on you. You have to go figure that out. Because that emotional tie to being perfect dude, it's the most emotionally draining thing in the world.
100%.
Because you can't stop thinking about it.
100%.
And you go to bed thinking about it and wake up thinking about it. And it hurts because you want that to not be a thing. But like, emotional ties to anything outside of your control in business will kill an operator faster than anything.
And it's hard, right? Because you start this business out of a place of service, wanting to improve people's lives, wanting to really improve the overall quality of their life with exercise equipment and exercise and fitness and all these things, which is a net positive, right? And you come from this place of trying to be an only net positive for people. And then when you can't be that for someone, it hurts, because you're essentially here and like you've decided that your purpose on this planet is to make this world better. And when you can't fulfill that for somebody for whatever reason, and you have to like pull away and be like, no, 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 I've cleaned my side of the street and everything I've done is everything within my power, and I have to put up a boundary on this. And that has to be probably, I would have to say, for you, being a leader and a business owner, dealing with both the employee side and the customer side, the hardest thing for you.
It's so much. I'm really glad that you led into this, and because the employee side is so much harder. It is, if you're an empath and you care about people and you have had these experiences from other leaders that brought you to this place in life where you developed a platform to be successful on. You want and feel obligated to do the same for other people. And it's only natural that the people that start working at your company, you do that for, and you identify this potential. There's, what can this person actually do? And then like now, and then what's their potential? What's like the reserves that they have, the energy inside of them that they can get here. And often you are so bought into this that you become emotionally kind of torn, and you see this thing that they can get to, they absolutely can, but you want it more for them than they want it. And
Well, and it's essentially like you see someone's potential, and you can see potential from a mile away, but it's so hard for them to see it in themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And how many times do you go throughout a day being like, you can be fucking whatever you want to be, but truly and wholly feel that
Yeah.
because you work with this person side by side for months, but because of whatever shit that they're going through, they can't see it for themselves.
It's a lot of times it's these exterior variables, these things that are going on out here. They bring those in.
And it's so hard for them to like to level with them, and be like, hey, these problems that you think are this big
Right.
are actually just this fucking big. And you can be so great and you're so beyond this thing that you're hyper focusing on that you're letting it, tarnish your quality of work. And how can we exploit that to make you better so that you can see what I see in you? Because I want you a part of this team. And essentially you only hire people that you want a part of your team.
Absolutely.
No one hires anybody that they're like, I'm really not stoked about this person coming in today.
Yeah.
And so take me through that process of like, have you ever had a circumstance where someone was going through, the shit themselves and you were able to pull them out of it and them see their own potential?
Yeah. It's a great question. Yes. Long term, though, like, does it stick? Often not. I think that, I think about this so much, right? Like, there are people in the world that, whatever you want to call it, successful, they're, you know, driven, and they want to do these things, and they're accomplishing things in life. Let's call that successful just for this kind of conversation. Why are there so few of those people? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, logically, it doesn't really, you wouldn't think that like 5% of the population would be those types of people, because it's inside innately in everyone, right? Like,
It's not like you're doing anything physically impossible.
right, yeah. It is a combination of like those opportunities and how much advantage you take of those, and these characteristics and traits that you build about yourself, and it's just this algorithm of like all these different stimuli that someone kind of experiences. And I think that there is that like aha moment where it all kind of clicks together, and then from there it's that rapid takeoff for those people. They never go backwards. Because in the beginning, if you think about like in your youth, you can attest to this. There were these moments where you're like, oh, like this is, I see, fuck, and then I'm back down, and like there's this girl, and then like everything kind of falls apart again.
Yeah.
Right. And then, but like at some point, it was like, boom, like I have arrived, and then now I can go. And there's nothing else everything else kind of sucks a little bit every day, but it's not that bad. You're like, I kind of like the world can
This
be falling
regular
apart.
shit, I can just deal with
yeah,
this.
like
Yeah.
the world falls apart every Saturday.
Yeah.
Like it's not a big deal, right?
Or you just see certain circumstances, right, that you're like, fuck, like that. Those are actual problems. And what I have, like, and I love this quote, which is, if everyone was to throw their shit into a pile, you'd take yours back. Right?
Yeah.
And so like you might be dealing with your own shit,
Yeah.
but that's your shit. And that's
Yeah.
okay to deal with your shit, because your shit ain't that bad.
Yeah, and this to put a bow on like the emotional resilience thing. That's one thing that I'm most grateful for, is a life where you can at a certain point your job just becomes to steer the ship and put the fires out and cut checks and make sure that that everything doesn't blow up, right? But that has like given me this this respect for that like emotional resilience. Not a lot of people are able to have a life where I can circumnavigate life, and like there will be these huge things, like I'll get a phone call, hey, this truck is broken down on the side of the road, and like all these customers are yelling, and okay, cool, let's figure that one out. And then like the next one is like, hey, there was fraud on these cards, and like there's $50,000 missing from the accounts, and it's just like, okay, cool, bam, 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 like figuring those things out, where years ago it was, well, like everything must, the world is coming to an absolute fucking end.
Yes.
It's neat. I'm just blessed to be exposed to stuff like that.
Yeah. And, like you said, you've developed that emotional
Yeah,
resilience
that
where
callousness.
you aren't going to lose your shit over one thing.
Still super get sad though. Like definitely cry sometimes.
I think that's okay.
Yeah,
I think
you
I think
have
we
to.
all cry a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
I'd rather cry than rage.
You gotta like dirty cry every like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, and then you're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've definitely had my fair share of like I'm either gonna get mad or cry. And I think crying's gonna be the best outcome here. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you being a business owner, if I saw you crying, I'd be like, all right, like I'm here. Like let me work this out with you. Versus like how many owners have we seen just like rage out?
Oh yeah.
And you're just like, dude, there's nothing, no one's gonna follow you. No one's gonna like want to go to bat for you.
Yeah. You
You
could
know?
level head.
How many times have we had bosses or owners that were just like tyrants? And I think that set the example for even myself, and you can even attest to this, where how do I become a leader in the opposite of that? Because essentially I don't want to work another goddamn day for this person.
It's about two things. It's about being in the details, and it's about being in the trenches with those people.
Yeah.
If you're in the details and you're, a lot of people, Brian Chemsky, he talks about this. He's the CEO of Airbnb. There's a difference between micromanaging and being in the details, but they look quite similar. But being in the details is like, hey, I want to be a part of what you guys are working on and help you make the right decision because I've already made all of the wrong decisions and I've already dealt with all the bullshit that you guys are currently dealing with, right? And being there and showing that support, I think, and then giving them that guidance, but also being parallel to them working, equally as hard, if not harder. You have to be the hardest worker in the room. Absolutely have to. It's non-negotiable. I
Yeah.
think the combination of those two things shows, that you're not this tyrant. You're not this leader that leads with an iron fist. Although there will be those people that, are kind of under the impression that you're this raging asshole rich guy that owns the company, and there are like varying other degrees of delusional things that people will think. But like ultimately, again, it's about cleaning your side of the street and like being that leader that the most of the employees will want to follow.
I think the best things that ever happened to me was like watching my dad own a restaurant and like people thinking he was rich and then actually knowing his numbers and be like, nope,
Dude,
like he just gets by the skin of his teeth, just so you guys know.
I have this. I have this saying now. It's like I'm forever wishing that I was as rich as my employees think I am.
Yes.
That's
yes.
what I'm trying to get to.
And then the other one being, coming back full like to restaurants, just as an example of businesses and leaders, is like I've had those owners that were in the trenches with you.
Yeah.
That weren't micromanaging you. That were like, hey, how do we fucking get through this?
It's fun,
this
right?
is
Yeah.
this is this is gonna be a little hairy, but
gets
it's okay.
lit.
It'll be hairy together. And
Yeah.
having that team and that group of people, I can think of an establishment like off the top of my head where everybody felt like a team. Everybody felt like a unit. And bosses have to be bosses, and sometimes they have to like be disciplinarians because they have to, because that's a part of the job. But they have everyone's best interest in mind, and they're there with you. They're sweating with you. They're running things with you. They're looking at food quality. They're looking at like the quality of everything with you because they know it benefits everyone in the team. And I think the inverse of that, and we've all been there, which is the tyrant, which is like, man, like, am I just a number, just like clocking in, clocking out, just making sure this guy makes enough money for his next Mercedes?
Yeah.
Or is this a team effort?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And like, the hardest part of leaving New York was leaving my job. And I'll tell you what, like the last job I had in New York, like I would have worked 70 hours for that guy because I had so much loyalty, because I knew he was in the trenches with us. I knew he was working harder and longer than I was, and was there at every fucking service. And I think you embody that as well, which is like, you're here helping them package this huge cycling order. And like, there's this huge order that we're just staring at over here that's going to the UK. And you're a part of all of this with them. And I think that emulates into the loyalty of your workers and just the work ethic of your workers, because they're like, fuck, Dillon's here before me, Dillon's here after me, and he's working just as hard, if not harder, than I am.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate all of the acknowledgement and accolades, and dude, yeah, like just keep kind of like a broken record, just how grateful and blessed I am, and yeah, that's it.
It's really fucking cool to see
That's it.
the entirety of what you're building, man. It's
Thank you.
like I'm like awestruck still. I walk through this whole warehouse and I'm like a kid in a candy shop. I'm like, this has to be so fucking cool.
I love everyone's reaction whenever they come in.
Yeah, man. Well, what does the next chapter look like? What does the next 5 years look like?
Dude, I mean, I don't want to like spill too much of the goods, but it's a lot of the same. It's continuing to build on what we're good at, doubling down on everything that we know works, and continue to just carve out a place in the industry for us to really solidify what we're doing, and continue to reinforce, how the business can kind of function on its own 2 feet, working on a lot of brand stuff, and being able to compete with the heavy hitters with build. And it's so raw right now and unrefined, and it's a lot of fun to just like put all those things together. And the final form of build, I think, is like that really scalable thing that I want to work on, and I think will be able to help the most amount of people. So just keep putting the left foot in front of the right foot, man. No like numbers on the billboard that I'm trying to hit or anything. I have some of those, obviously, that I kind of think about, but I think the big picture thing is to just keep trucking, dude. Keep trucking, and then keep rolling.
Dude, I fucking love it. Well, thank you for having me today. And this has been fucking incredible.
This is awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime.